now we are ready to move on to the neck and the tenon. One thing we want to do before we put the neck on is to measure the depth of our mortise. And I am right at 70 millimeters. That means that I need to mark 70 millimeters onto the neck. And I'm actually going to go just a little bit shy of that, so I'm going to measure 68. Okay, now I have this line, and I'm going to match my jig up to this line. Okay, now we put the neck in on this side and line the truss rod up with a couple of plastic pins mounted on here. Crank down the lockdowns. Try to get even pressure on both sides. Here's the line that I drew earlier. That's the 70 millimeter mark. Well, it's actually 68 millimeters. So I wanted to leave a couple millimeters extra just so it wasn't too tight a fit. And I'm going to line that up, knowing that my bushing is going to take up just a little bit, probably a 1/16 or so. I'm going to bolt these back in place. And these don't have to be super crazy tight, because again, this is MDF. We're going to crunch our MDF up, and I just don't need to do that. They just have to be tight enough so it doesn't move. And once they're a little bit tight, there's a lot of friction on here, so it's going to prevent that from going back and forth. Okay, now I have my 3.5 millimeter shim in the saddle location. And it's taped into place. I've got the neck set in the jig, and we're ready to start aligning this to the exact same spot that we had that straight edge when we measured this neck angle with the sliding bevel. So we are going to get this corner tucked up right here on the jig. This is going to be totally flat where we have gotten our heel block area flat. So we're going to bump that up to here. Going to manually dial this almost there. Yep. All right. So now that is exactly 3.5 millimeters at the saddle location. And we are exactly square and flush down here on the heel. Because that neck is connected to this bar all the way through, our neck angle should be just about perfect. Okay, I am manually looking at this alignment one more time. Everything looks good. If you put this template on here and you route too far in this way, it is possible to go too deep and hit the hinges that are screwed onto here. So make sure that you don't go far enough, and I don't always remember that, so I make sure to put a stop block behind it so my router doesn't go too far here. All right, now to set up the depth. Set the router on template, push the router down to where the bit hits the neck, lock the router in place. Now I've got my depth gauge loose, put my 7/8 shim into it, making sure that the 7/8 is up and down, and then we're not doing this way for 3/4. Tighten up the depth gauge, pull the shim out, and now we know that our plunge router is only going to go down that 7/8. Now with this, we don't really have an empty spot like we did on the mortise where we can plunge down, lock it, and then move around. This we are going to have to plunge in real time. So we just have to be super careful about doing that. I'm just going around to make sure that I'm not going to hit anything, that all my clearances are okay, that my handle isn't going to hit this. Yeah, we're ready to go. There's one other thing that I forgot about this template. I had to order a new one because my old one got dinged up. Too many times the router had chunked into this. So I did not pre-shape or pre-taper my neck. I didn't give myself any shape here yet at all. And this is made for a tapered neck if you're tapering this down into your heel block. I don't always do that, especially if I have a cutaway. I like my cutaways to blend right into the body and have the cutaway kind of come right off the neck. So I like to have all this space open with my router. So I have to take my jigsaw and open this up a little bit more to give me full access out here, because I do want to also test this fit of the neck before we get to full depth. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. But first, I need to go out and cut this. All right, I've squared this out. I've widened this out so I can get all my material out of there. That's going to work much better for me. Now, as I am routing down further and further, I want to leave my last pass, like the last 1/8 to 3/16 or so. I want to leave that proud. I don't want to go down that far because I want to leave myself a little bit of room in case we have to do something a little bit different. So when we get to that point, I'm going to pull the neck out and take a look, do a test fit, and see if there are any adjustments that need to be made, because that's the time to do it. So I'm going to take probably 3-4 passes, and before I get down to that last little bit between here and here, I'm going to stop it, pull the neck, check it. Here we go. Okay, this looks pretty good. There are a couple spots I missed. I'll just hit those on the deeper pass. So for right now, I'm going to get myself a little bit deeper. Okay, lock that into place. Because I don't have any room to drop the bit outside of the neck because of the way that this template sits on the neck, what I have to do is push back to my stopping block. I adjust the height of this, the depth of cut, turn it on, and then tip it into place, making sure that I've got this back here to kind of pivot against, and making sure that I'm dropping it right into the template opening and not onto my template. Otherwise, I'm going to have to buy another new template, which I don't want to do right now. Okay, so that's adjusted. Turn it on and plunge it. All right, that's good. All right, that's where I'm gonna stop for now and take a look at the test fit. And it's got these little wings on the side, which I'm going to just snap off like that. Okay, now I've pulled the neck out, and I'm gonna give this test fit. Should be a pretty precise fit. Yeah. I have just a little bit left right here. I have a small shelf that I can take off by hand and make one small adjustment to my depth on the final cuts. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to check the gap. Okay, I just need to take a couple of millimeters off this. It was not much. Make sure your chisel's sharp, and that will come right off. Now I want to take a look at my neck angle. Just kind of teeter the guitar off of the edge a little bit. I am going to come at this. Try and get the straight edge coming off of the neck, right at the body, and measure where I'm at, right at the bridge, and I am 1, 2, 3.5 on the nose. 1, 2, 3.5. Yeah. So I'm on the right track. That's good. What that tells me is that the angle's good here. It's really just about perfect. I'm going to put the neck back into here and continue all the way to that 7/8 measurement and go from there. Now when I clamp the neck back in this jig, I want to make sure, one, that the pins are aligned. That will keep my neck alignment exactly like it's supposed to. The other is that I don't push the neck up too hard against this tongue on the template right here, because it's so flimsy that you can put too much pressure on and push that farther than what it wants to go, and you'll cut a little deeper than you need to. And lastly, I don't want to go that full 7/8 depth my first cut back in the jig. Still want to come at that pretty slowly. I'm about a 1/16, almost an 1/8 away. And I'm going to take one pass here, almost treat it like a test pass, and then hopefully we can do the final right after that. Here we go. Okay, everything looks good. Alignment still looks great. Good passes on the bit, and I'm not quite there on the bottom, looking underneath it. So I think I'm ready to do this final pass. Exactly where I want it. Now we'll take it out and do another test fit. And with this last pass, I want to make sure that I get this tenon cut just like the other one was. All right, what I've got going on here, my angle's off just a little bit right on the tenon. The shoulder seems to be okay, but I need to reduce this right here. The way I check for that is I slide this in right there, and you can see I've got some daylight underneath this. That's just too high, but by the time I get all the way forward, it's sitting just fine. So I just need to duplicate that angle and take a little bit off the backside. I'm going to go bump that up against my disc sander and come right back. Took this to the sander, That's a good fit there. I'm going to take my straight edge, check my gap again. Now this fit in here, right against there, doesn't look as precise as it could be, but that's because I beveled the edge of the neck right there, and so the gap looks a little bigger than it really is. But we're going to fix any of those gaps when we actually fit the neck. That's where I want it. 1, 2, 3.5 on the nose. Gotta love it when that measurement works out exactly like it's supposed to. That last 0.5 millimeter can end up chasing for a little bit. If it wasn't correct, I would want to make some adjustments here in the shoulders and try to fit that a little bit better. Let me take a look at one other thing. So this alignment is exactly where I want it to be. All right, great.